Every tree you've ever seen is mostly dead. Not dead like a fallen log, but built largely from dead tissue. The living part of a tree is only a thin layer, just millimeters thick, hidden under the bark. That tiny layer runs everything. To understand why, we need to go back in time. For over 1 billion years. The ancestors of plants lived in the oceans. Life there was easier. Water supported their bodies, and they could absorb moisture directly through their surface while using sunlight to turn water and carbon dioxide into sugar. But around 470 million years ago, plants began moving onto land. Land was harsh. Gravity pulled them down, wind battered them, and the air dried them out. Still, land had one big prize: sunlight. And that triggered the first major plant arms race growing taller. The higher a plant grew, the more sunlight it captured, and the more it shaded its competitors. Height became an advantage, and soon plants were in a battle for the sky. The problem was that early land plants were mostly built from cellulose. Cellulose is great for shape, but it isn't strong enough to build very tall structures. Over millions of years, some plants evolved a powerful new material: lignin. Lignin makes tissue rigid, tough, and waterproof. It's also incredibly hard to break down. With lignin, plants could stiffen their bodies and resist collapsing. And eventually, plants combined cellulose and lignin into an even more extreme material: wood with wood. The first true trees appeared about 385 million years ago. They quickly became the largest living things on land. But being tall created a new crisis: transport. A tall tree has to move water from the ground up to the leaves, where photosynthesis happens. And it has to move sugar made in the leaves down to the rest of the tree. Without a pump, without muscles, without a heart. So trees built a solution using a thin ring of stem cells called the Xylem. The cambium is a narrow layer that wraps around the trunk like a living belt. Its job is to keep dividing. And each time it divides, it produces cells in two directions, inward and outward. Cells produced inward become xylem. Cells produced outward become phloem. Xylem is the water transport system, and it's also most of the wood. But here's the key detail. Xylem works because those cells die as xylem cells mature. They build thick walls reinforced with lignin. Then they hollow themselves out and lose the living parts inside. Finally, they die. What remains is a hard, empty tube. A huge number of these tubes stacked together form a network of microscopic pipes running from roots to leaves. Year after year, new pipes are added, and the older ones remain as structure. That's why trees form rings. Most of the trunk becomes a giant scaffold made of dead, hardened tissue. Over time, the oldest xylem can stop transporting water and fill with resins and defensive chemicals. This becomes heartwooded, dense inner core resistant to decay. It's not the main pipeline anymore, but it strengthens the tree and helps it survive. Now, how does water climb these pipes? Trees don't push water up. They pull it. Leaves have tiny openings that release water vapor into the air. This is called transpiration. Sunlight warms the leaf and causes water to evaporate from inside it. That evaporation creates tension, like a suction force. Water molecules also cling to each other strongly. So when water molecules escape from the leaf, they pull on the molecules behind them. That pull travels down through the entire water column inside the xylem, all the way to the roots. You can think of it like a rope made of water. Evaporation at the top tugs the rope upward, lifting water from the ground to the crown of the tree. This creates negative pressure inside the tree's strong suction. It can lift water to enormous heights as long as the water column stays unbroken. Trees can do this because their xylem tubes are extremely narrow, helping the water stay continuous instead of snapping into bubbles. Water is only half the story, though. The sugars produced in the leaves must reach the rest of the tree, and different parts of the tree need to exchange information about growth and damage. That's what phloem does. Phloem is a thin layer of living tissue just under the bark. It transports sugar from the leaves to wherever it's needed: roots, growing tips, storage tissues, and healing areas. Phloem includes sieve cells, which form the main transport channels. As they mature, they remove many internal structures to become efficient pipelines. But that makes them unable to fully maintain themselves, so sieve cells rely on companion cells. Companion cells keep them alive by managing energy, producing necessary molecules, and repairing damage. Together, sieve cells and companion cells form living sugar highways running throughout the tree. Phloem also contains parenchyma cells, general-purpose workers. They store nutrients for later, help the tree survive winter or drought, repair injuries, and produce chemical defenses against fungi, insects, and other threats. Outside the phloem, the tree builds bark. Bark is mostly made of dead protective cells. It acts like armor, shielding the delicate living layers from physical damage, parasites, dehydration, and infection. This is why damaging bark can be so dangerous. You're not just hurting the surface. You may be destroying the thin living tissues that keep the entire tree functioning. So what is a tree, really? A tree is a thin living ring that continuously builds outward and inward. It creates a living transport and communication network near the surface. And it creates a massive dead framework inside for strength and water transport. It's a living system operating inside a body that is mostly non-living material. And this strategy has an unusual side effect. Trees don't age the way animals do. Instead of a body made of living cells that must stay alive forever, trees constantly add new layers and keep their essential living tissues protected. In principle, if nothing external stops them, like drought, disease, storms, or human trees can keep going for a very long time. That's why some trees alive today began life thousands of years ago. The next time you see a tree, remember what you're really looking at: a tiny living layer, running an enormous tower built from dead pipes, dead armor, and the physics of water, mostly dead, yet one of the most successful designs life has ever created. If you'll never look at trees the same way again, like, subscribe, and share this with a friend. More science clearly explained, right here on Cognitia.